Risk less, win more. Market research and leadership secrets. Welcome home, my leadership friends. Welcome to episode 27 of the Beau Leadership Group Podcast. I'm your host, Bob Beaulaurier, and today we're diving into the most important thing for entrepreneurs and lots of leaders, managing risks. Entrepreneurship is precarious. Yep, that's our word for today. The precarity of entrepreneurs. Precarity is the noun version of the precarious word, precarious, my word power friends. And take a moment to listen to my word power episode of the Beau Leadership Group if you've not already. And please subscribe while you're there at your Apple, Buzzsprout, or Amazon, looking up that episode on word power. Anyway, entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship is like walking a tightrope with no net, juggling family, finances, and competitors who might just fax your bankruptcy notice to the world. My friend thought he was just following his mentor's advice and restructuring his company until his competitor got wind of it and told all of his clients before he could tell the clients himself. Restructuring under one of the federal chapters of bankruptcy. True story. This friend ended up being exceptionally successful in the long run, but he had to repair a big hole in his brand for quite a while. True story. That actually happened prior to me getting out of college. So how do you beat precarity? It starts with due diligence and leadership. That's smarter than killing yourself slowly with a 90-hour work week. Some people do work 90-hour work weeks. I had a friend who had a bakery and worked 90 hours a week with his wife, day in, day out. They were there early in the morning and late at night. And financially, they did great, new cars and did things for their kids. And I think he even had an airplane. But what my friend didn't realize is that a short time after selling the bakery, his wife died and never really enjoyed their success. And you got to wonder, did she work herself to death? Rest wise and eat like your life depends on it, because this is another way to manage your risk. And let's unpack 7 minutes of pure gold to make you a better leader and entrepreneur if you're an entrepreneur. The precarity problem, folks. Entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship isn't for the faint-hearted. It grows gray hair. I've got some. And the risks are real. Your income, relationships, and even your home are on the line. Did you know that 20% of businesses, small businesses, fail in their first 2 years, and 10 to 20% end up in bankruptcy? That's per the Small Business Administration, by the way. Competitors don't play nice. They attack your character or outflank you with better pricing. And don't get me wrong, and started on the work-life balance. Is there one? I'm not sure sometimes. I've seen entrepreneurs lose their spark because they're burning out, not building up. And you got to build up. Precarity means you're one bad decision from a disaster. But here's the secret sauce. You, the entrepreneur, are the only one who cares enough and has that deep caring to keep the ship afloat. So, how do you manage this madness? 2 words, due diligence. It's not easy. Everything worth doing is uphill, right? So let's start with the biggest weapon against risk, market research. Let's quickly remind ourselves of the null hypothesis, which I covered in another episode, and market research. Here's the question for you to hook you. What if your brilliant idea is an idea nobody wants? CB Insights says 42% of startups fail because there is no market need. So even though you may think it's a great idea, you have a 4 in 10 chance that it's not that great of an idea, right? That's 2 out of 5 ideas. That's why I'm begging you, don't brainstorm with your brother-in-law around a table and a few beers, because you might love the idea like you love your brother-in-law when you've had a few Budweisers. Get real data. Think like a scientist. Start with a null hypothesis. Assume your idea has zero demand until proven otherwise. For example, want to open a soup dumpling restaurant? Don't just dream about it. My favorite dumpling spot just closed in Portland, Oregon, because they didn't adapt. Survey 100 potential customers and ask, would you pay $15 for this? And guess what? If you only get 10 people out of the 100 that say yes, those are the only people you should be looking at their demographics and ideas about it. And that's not a normal distribution. You need 25 people that are interested in your product to even get an idea of what the market might think, and they should be randomly selected and a few other things. But Test an MVP on a landing page. Check Google Trends for local demand. And if the data says nope, pivot or walk away. It's cheaper than losing your house, isn't it? I'm a pricing expert and I've seen restaurants raise prices to fix cash flow. And that seems natural, right? You want more revenue, raise your prices. But only then they tank because customers are price sensitive. One study showed 60% of restaurants fail in a year one, often from bad pricing. Do the research, hire a pro. You need to. As Henry Ford said, nothing is particularly hard if you divide it into jobs. And Henry Ford also said patience is the key to business. Market research is job one, even though for a long time Ford's tagline was quality is job one. Quality is a major antidote to failure, but that's another podcast. And I'm a fan of David Acker on the subject of quality, and he's from Cal if you want to look him up. Now, let's talk leadership, because precarity doesn't just hit your wallet, it hits your life. Your darn life. That's why you're here, right? Is to live your life. Job number one of a leader, build a team that's better than you. It's the old, what if the CEO was hit by a bus problem? I've seen key employees who build a huge real estate organization get a stroke, and the whole show almost failed. All those employees, multiple locations, I think they had 36. You can't wear every hat. Accountants, salespeople, they should pay for themselves. Get good ones. They're worth their price in gold if they're good. Harvard research backs this. Weak teams cause 23% of startup failures. That's 1 in 5 failures is started and stopped by the team starting it. Let me say that again, that stat. Weak teams cause 23% of startup failures. Again, that's 1 in 5. Find specialists, mentors, join networks like SCORE, perhaps. But there are pitfalls and caveats with SCORE too. I see them at the Small Business Administration and different groups. Those SCORE retired executives do not necessarily know your business. And I've seen retired accountants give some of the worst business advice I've ever heard at SCORE. Why? Because that accountant never worked outside of accounting. He understands raising your price at the restaurant will increase revenue. The problem is he hasn't had the kind of competitors that you might have at your restaurant. His frame of reference is an industry where government requires you to file your taxes. So everyone he talks to has to file their taxes, right? Most businesses are not required by our government. I find with SCORE that one of the biggest errors that happens with them is the industry that I'm involved in. And there's data to back this up too, because entrepreneurs fail to do market research. That's what I'm telling you. You need the data, right? And identifying your customers, target customers, how to do it, market sizing. This step is often skipped, or the entrepreneur assumes their shoes or the insert product that they've designed for shoes has a huge market because everyone has feet. Well, that's not how it works. People have to be interested in your product, have to be willing to pay the price you need to cover your nut, right? Don't get me started. And here's the leadership rule number 1, which is kind of under between the lines here that we've been talking about already, but you can exaggerate it with some biblical wisdom too. Find someone who can replace you. Even Jesus faced mutiny and was knocked off at the age of 33. Without a replacement, you're stuck working 90-plus-hour weeks, burning out while your family forgets your face. And some studies suggest that you are 10% more likely to get a divorce as a small business person. In my experience, it happens when funds are running out too, when they're low. So don't start before you have the funds. Resilience is key. Forbes magazine says fear and stress are the top barriers. Don't let fear and stress win. Proactively meditate and use prayer and whatever you can to help. Just like the song says, anxiety hates Psalm 23. But you need to distinguish between what is a real emergency and what is just normal business. And that can be done with data and market research, because normal business is stressful. You've got to take these due diligence steps. Plan those breaks, retreats, and family outings to keep everybody on your teams as stress-free as possible and make those teams work. This podcast has a lot of tips to increase your chances of avoiding crisis management. And crisis management is one of the reasons I started this podcast, because no one needs to live through crisis management. I know I have at times. And there is a reason many companies have bowling, softball, and other fun stuff like golf tournaments, because it is good to have some of those times where you blow off steam together and get to realize that, oh, they're a human being that has fun too. Get some bonds going, but set boundaries like no work after 7 p.m. Actually, I also think there should be no strikes and protests after 7 p.m. It's not very nice to our police departments. And plan for risks, scenario, plan competitor moves, and keep learning. Markets shift, so you must also shift. My pricing pet peeve, businesses that don't test prices regularly. Your output is only as good as your team and your data. Garbage data, and you will make garbage decisions. We learned that in Stats 101. The takeaway, entrepreneurship is precarious, but you can thrive with due diligence and leadership. Start with a null hypothesis. Prove your idea with real data, not dreams from your brother-in-law over Budweiser's. Build a team that outshines you and guard your home life like it's your business foundation, because it is. Want more? Please subscribe to my podcast or contact me through the Beau Leadership Group website. Until next time, manage your risks and keep leading with God in mind, and bless your week.